why emotion is making you weak. They told you to feel everything, to react fast, to follow your heart. And that's exactly why they control you. Because the man who lives by emotion dies by manipulation. While you're busy being offended, someone else is calculating. While you're drowning in anger, someone else is taking your position. While you're chasing validation, someone else is building dominance in silence. Emotion makes you loud. Emotion makes you predictable. Emotion makes you weak. And the world does not reward weakness. Thomas Shelby never lets emotion lead. He lets it starve. Because in a world built on pressure, betrayal and power, the calm man always survives the storm. Tonight, you're going to learn the truth they never taught you. Your emotions are not your strength. They are your leash. And unless you cut it, you'll always be controlled. Emotion destroys strategy. Emotion feels powerful. It burns hot. It moves fast. It convinces you that action is strength, but Shelby knows better. Emotion doesn't build strategy, it kills it. Anger makes you rush into traps you would have seen if your blood were cold. Fear makes you retreat from doors that were meant to be broken. Desire makes you reach for things that cost you everything in the end. Emotion speeds you up, and speed without direction is just another way to crash. A strategist moves slowly. He watches, he measures, he calculates 3 outcomes before making a single move. But the emotional man, he only sees what's directly in front of his face. And that's exactly where the ambush is waiting. Shelby learned this the hard way. In war, the man who panicked died first. In business, the man who got angry showed his hand. In power, the man who acted from pride exposed his weakness. Emotion makes you loud. Strategy makes you silent. Emotion tells you to respond immediately. Strategy tells you to wait until the timing is fatal. Most men think restraint is weakness. They think silence is submission. They think calm means you don't care, but they are wrong. Calm means you see everything. Silence means you're deciding where the damage will land. Restraint means you are dangerous enough that you don't need to prove it. The emotional man argues. The strategic man moves pieces. The emotional man wants to be right in the moment. The strategic man wants to win in the end. Emotion trades the future for relief. Strategy trades discomfort for dominance. Shelby doesn't ask, how do I feel about this? He asks, what does this lead to? That one question is the difference between a man who survives and a man who rules. Emotion narrows your vision. It locks you into one outcome, usually the wrong one. It blinds you with urgency and calls it instinct. But instinct without discipline is just panic with confidence. Strategy requires distance from feeling. You cannot see the full battlefield when your heart is racing and your ego is screaming. You cannot read people when you're trying to defend your pride. You cannot think clearly when you're drowning in reaction. That's why emotional men are always late to the truth. They realize the mistake after the damage is done. After the wrong words, after the wrong fight, after the wrong move. Shelby avoids that fate by doing something most men refuse to do. He pauses. He lets the emotion pass. He watches who speaks when he doesn't. He lets others reveal their desperation while he reveals nothing. Because strategy is not built in a fire. It's built in stillness. Emotion wants release. Strategy wants results. Emotion wants to win now. The strategy wants to own the board later. And here is the truth most men will never face. If you cannot sit with discomfort without reacting, if you cannot hold your tongue when your pride is provoked, if you cannot delay action when your emotions demand movement, you will never outthink your enemies. You will only collide with them. Shelby doesn't collide. He controls. He lets emotional men crash into their own mistakes while he stands untouched behind his calculations. Because in the end, Emotion creates movement, but strategy decides direction. And the man who controls direction controls the outcome. Emotion makes you predictable. The fastest way to lose power, it is to show how you feel. Most men think emotion makes them real. They think anger proves strength. They think passion proves courage. They think reaction proves confidence. Shelby knows the truth. Emotion makes you readable. And readable men are easy to defeat. The moment you react, you write instructions for your enemies. You teach them what hurts you. You tell them what controls you. You reveal where the pressure will break you. Anger shows where your pride lives. Fear shows where your limits are. Desire shows where you'll sacrifice your principles for. Jealousy shows where your insecurity bleeds. And once a man knows these things about you, you are no longer dangerous, you are manageable. Shelby never gives that gift. His face stays calm. His voice stays level. His movements stay controlled, not because he feels nothing, but because he refuses to let anyone see what he feels. Because he knows this. The man who cannot be read cannot be controlled emotionally. Men advertise their thoughts without speaking a word. Their posture betrays them. Their eyes expose them. Their tone confesses before their mouth does. They walk into rooms already defeated, because the room can already see through them. Shelby walks into rooms with a locked door, no signal, no trail, no heat, only pressure. And that pressure forces others to reveal themselves. When you do not react, they react for you. When you do not speak, they over-explain. When you do not blink, they begin to doubt. Silence turns other men into confession booths. They fill the quiet with insecurity. They justify themselves. They brag. They threaten. And in doing so, they expose everything. Emotion creates patterns. Patterns create predictability. Predictability creates vulnerability. An angry man will always lash out. A fearful man will always hesitate. A desperate man will always compromise. Shelby breaks that cycle by never staying in one emotional state long enough to be tracked. His enemies can't map him. They can't bait him. They can't provoke him into revealing anything useful, because he denies them the only advantage they crave: a reaction. Reaction is what gives others leverage over you. It turns words into weapons against your own mind. It lets insults determine your behavior. It lets pressure dictate your decisions. Shelby takes that weapon away. He doesn't flinch when threatened. He doesn't rush when challenged. He doesn't soften when flattered. Because any emotional shift becomes information, and information becomes ammunition. This is why emotional men always feel hunted. They sense, subconsciously, that they are exposed, that their inner world is visible, that their weakness can be seen from across the room. Shelby doesn't live that way. He lives behind armor built from restraint. He doesn't let others chart his moods. He doesn't let them study his reactions. He doesn't let them test his limits out loud. They only find his limits when it's too late. And here is the brutal truth. If someone can predict how you will react, they can predict how to beat you. If someone knows what triggers you, they can steer your decisions. If someone can provoke emotion in you, they own your behavior. Shelby never hands over that control. Because power is not about force. It's about unreadability. And the moment you become emotionally predictable, you stop being dangerous. Control of emotion is the birth of power. Power does not begin with force. It begins with restraint. Most men think power means domination. Loud voices, fast actions, visible authority. They confuse noise with control. They believe that the one who feels the most, reacts the fastest, shows the strongest emotion must be the strongest man in the room. Shelby knows how wrong that is. Because real power is quiet. Real power doesn't rush. Real power does not need to announce itself. It waits. Emotion is what makes men lose their strength. They celebrate too early. They threaten too loudly. They collapse too visibly. And every emotional leak is a loss of leverage. Shelby never leaks. He feels everything. Fear, anger, pressure, loss. But he keeps it locked behind iron discipline, not because he's empty, but because he understands something most men never learn. The man who controls his emotions controls the energy of every room he walks into. When you remain calm under pressure, others feel the pressure double. When you stay silent during conflict, others grow louder and weaker. When you show no reaction to an insult, others feel their power fade. That is dominance without violence. Emotionally, men chase release. They want to shout, strike, react, escape the discomfort inside their chest. They trade control for momentary relief. Shelby does the opposite. He lets the discomfort sit. He lets the tension stretch. He allows the pressure to build, not to break him, but to break the men watching him, because unresolved tension makes people desperate. And desperate people make mistakes. Control of emotion is not suppression, it's ownership. Shelby doesn't deny his emotions, he enslaves them. Anger becomes fuel, fear becomes awareness, pain becomes endurance, desire becomes discipline. Nothing inside him is wasted. That's what separates a ruler from a reactor. A reactive man is dragged through life by emotional chains. A controlled man walks freely through chaos, untouched by the storms around him. Shelby can sit across from enemies who want him dead and calmly drink his whiskey, not because he doesn't feel danger, but because danger no longer controls his heartbeat. That kind of composure terrifies people, because they realize something: they cannot shake him. They cannot rush him. They cannot intimidate him. They cannot emotionally disarm him. And once a man cannot be emotionally disarmed, nothing else works. Men think weapons create power. Shelby knows stability creates power. A calm mind sees opportunities where others see threats. A calm mind hears lies beneath loud words. A calm mind chooses when others are forced to react, and choice is the highest form of power. Emotion takes away choice. Discipline restores it. That's why emotional men always feel exhausted. They are always being pulled, pushed, triggered, offended, provoked. Shelby is never pulled. He is the gravity. He does not chase validation. He does not chase revenge. He does not chase approval. He waits, and the world eventually bends toward the man who does not bend to it, because power isn't found in emotional expression. It is forged in emotional command. The man who controls his fear becomes dangerous. The man who controls his anger becomes unstoppable. The man who controls his desires becomes untouchable. And the man who controls all three builds an empire in silence. Cold decisions build unbreakable men. Warm hearts make fragile men. Cold decisions forge unbreakable ones. The world rewards those who can choose without trembling. It crushes those who hesitate because they feel too much. Shelby understands this truth with brutal clarity. Every emotional decision carries regret. Every cold decision carries results. Most men choose based on comfort. They choose what feels right in the moment. They choose what eases guilt. They choose what protects their ego. And later, they pay for it with their future. Shelby chooses differently. He chooses what works, not what is kind, not what is easy, not what earns applause, what works, because the world is not sentimental. It is mechanical. And mechanisms respond only to pressure applied in the right place. Cold decisions are not cruel. They are accurate. They cut through illusion. They ignore panic. They bypass sympathy when sympathy becomes a weakness. When others pause to ask, how will this make me feel? Shelby asks, what does this secure? That is why he survives where others fall. Emotionally, men seek justice. Cold men secure outcomes. Emotional men seek peace. Cold men secure dominance. Emotionally, men look for closure. Cold men look for control. Shelby does not confuse morality with effectiveness. He understands that the world does not bend for what is fair. It bends for what is firm. Cold decisions demand something most men lack: the ability to endure being misunderstood. When you make the right choice instead of the popular one, people will hate you for it. When you choose long-term dominance over short-term approval, they will call you heartless. When you cut away what weakens you, they will call you cruel. Shelby accepts all of it, because reputation fades. Results remain. Cold decisions isolate you. They separate you from the comfort of the crowd. They place you alone in rooms where only pressure exists. But that isolation is the price of becoming unbreakable. Most men break because they are pulled in too many emotional directions. They want to be respected, they want to be loved, they want to be feared, they want to belong. And trying to satisfy all four destroys them. Shelby chooses one: control. With control, respect follows. With control, fear follows. With control, loyalty follows. But none of that comes from softness. It comes from certainty. A cold decision is certain. It doesn't wobble. It doesn't beg for reassurance. It doesn't second guess under pressure. And because it does not shake, neither does the man who made it. This is how men become unbreakable. Not by avoiding pain, but by choosing through it. Not by running from pressure, but by stepping forward while others retreat. Not by being fearless, but by being disciplined enough to act even while fear screams. Shelby's strength is not that he feels less, it's that he chooses more precisely. Every time he chooses cold logic over hot emotion, he hardens. Every time he denies impulse and chooses strategy, he sharpens. Every time he sacrifices comfort for position, he rises. And over time, something happens. The world stops testing him, because it learns that pressure does not bend him, it only clarifies him. Cold decisions build men the world cannot intimidate. Cold decisions build men the world cannot rush. Cold decisions build men the world cannot emotionally disarm. And in the end, the man who can choose without emotion becomes the man no emotion can defeat. Conclusion: emotion feels powerful, but it lies. It tells you that the reaction is strong. It tells you that anger is courage. It tells you that sensitivity is awareness. But the world does not reward feeling. It rewards control. Thomas Shelby does not win because he feels less. He wins because he decides better. He lets others drown in reaction while he stays on shore. He lets others expose themselves through emotion while he remains unreadable. He lets others burn energy on outrage while he conserves it for domination. Emotion makes you visible. Control makes you untouchable. Every time you react instead of calculating, you give the world a handle to pull you by. Every time you let anger speak for you, you reveal where you are weakest. Every time you let fear influence your decisions, you build prisons inside your own mind. Shelby refuses those chains. He chooses silence over reaction, strategy over impulse, position over pride, long-term power over short-term relief. And that is why he stands while others collapse. This is the truth they never taught you. You don't lose because you're not strong enough. You lose because you feel too much and control too little. Master your emotions, and you master your fate. Let them master you, and everything you build will eventually fall. Because in the end, the man who controls his reactions controls the outcome. And the man who controls the outcome never needs to raise his voice to prove his power.